Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to, where I want you to place the label for any statement that's functioning as a premise or conclusion. If this is a simple argument, this argument is an example of a complex argument, therefore we will be looking for at least one subconclusion and the final conclusion. Also, in addition to showing you where to place the labels, I might go ahead and show you how to eliminate excess verbiage online, but I might create a separate video, so stay tuned. Okay, so I have come to the conclusion that I'm wearing a mask of my own free will. Okay, so in this instance, for some reason, even though I tend to leave them out, I did not get rid of this conclusion indicator. Not yet, but I will. But I know that this is a conclusion. So of course, I recommend that you not get rid of any indicators until you've labeled all premises and conclusions. Even if you're pretty sure this is the conclusion, I would not get rid of this conclusion indicator just to make sure of your final product. So even though this is a complex argument, I'm not sure if this is the final conclusion or the sub-conclusion. And you will not know if your argument is a final conclusion or a complex argument or simple argument until you have read it 3 or 4 times, reread the definition for sub-conclusion, final conclusion, and complex argument 2 or 3 times, till after you've studied this argument and the other 2 examples. So you have to study and analyze an argument to know whether or not it's simple or complex. Okay, so I have come to the conclusion that I'm wearing a mask of my own free will. My reasons for thinking this is true are, so in other words, here come my premises. So first of all, they just said my reasons are, colon mark, and then first of all, right? So this is a premise. So notice that I am putting the label after the number. So online, we will do the statement number and then the label. So you have to squeeze the label in between the statement number and the opening bracket. So this will be what? P. Also, use capital letters. You might want to add this to your notes or create a separate sheet of notes where you, or warnings or tips on page 5 of your notes. Maybe put something special on page 1 and say, see additional notes about marking arguments up online. Okay, so that's how you do that. So then it says my reasons. So I know they plan to give me more than one reason. I'm going to get more than one premise after this introduction. So it's like, first of all, and then the clue here is second. And I know that they were giving me reasons for something. And I'm looking at the content and I'm thinking, well, here they offer a definition as a reason. And then here they're talking more about the definition. And so they're probably still elaborating on their reasoning and extending their reasoning. So I'm going to say that this is a premise. Then we have, and I am 100% confident that the definition of free will is correct. So now they're extending the argument. They're going further. They're continuing to give reasoning. So we've got premise. It seems like a premise, but now look. Because that definition simply paraphrases one that the philosopher William Stace discovered through rational inquiry. Wait a minute. Typically, when we have the word because, what immediately comes after it is a premise. And the more I analyze the content of statement 5 in relation to statement 4, the more I begin to think that this is a premise, right? In other words, it's saying because, in other words, it's giving me a reason right here to believe that what is true? Statement 4. So statement 4 is another conclusion. So far, we've identified 2 conclusions. As we know, an argument cannot have 2 conclusions. It's just two main conclusions, right? One of these, if this is a complex argument, we need to figure out which one is the sub-conclusion and which one is the final conclusion. Now, keep in mind that you could have a simple argument and have 2 C's in the paragraph, but that would be and only because you repeated one in the same conclusion. So be careful not to confuse my lessons or forget important, qualifications. So again, in a simple argument, it is possible that you mark 2 statements as a conclusion, but that should only happen when one of the statements that you marked as a conclusion is repeating the exact same thing, maybe in different words, with more detail or in a more fuzzy way, the other statement that has been marked conclusion. Okay, so and then of course you say conclusion repeated or C repeated. Now, so we're saying that's a premise. And then we have and, right, because, and we all know that philosophers are experts when it comes to human concepts, definitions, and their use. So here, it seems like they're trying to give us reasons for why they are 100% confident about their definition for free will. They say that it paraphrases one from a philosopher, and then to further their reasoning or to add to their reasoning, they say that philosophers are experts. So it seems like that might be a premise as well. This we would not label as anything. So remember, important warning, iteration. If you didn't write this down somewhere, find a relevant page to write it on in your master documents of notes. If something is not bracketed or numbered, it should not have a label. And that's a weird thing that students do in the middle and towards the end of the semester too, is they'll label a statement that wasn't bracketed or numbered, and that should not happen. Another weird thing that sometimes students do is they'll draw a line through something that is a premise that's not repeated. If something has a label as a premise or conclusion, and it's not labeled as a repeated premise or conclusion, then you certainly should not draw a line through it. If something's a premise or conclusion and not repeated, then it's a core part of the argument and should not be eliminated like it's excess verbiage from the standpoint of clarifying arguments. Okay, statement 7, she will teach you to reason just as I have with you. That has nothing to do with any logical inference to any conclusion in this complex argument. This is merely contextual information about reasoning generally. So this is not going to be labeled as anything, even though it does have a number and bracketing. Okay, I think I will create a separate video for eliminating excess verbiage online. I recommend that you take this time to now work on labeling your own argument. Remember, you have to look at the lessons, the concepts, the examples, everything that I've given you when it comes to labeling. Look at all the stuff you wrote down about bracketing statements, numbering them, and labeling them, including the new information about complex arguments in case you have a complex argument.